this I am going to do something I said I was going to do last week. And I am excited actually to share this. I encountered something after I checked out some books. Documentary History of Banking and Currency in the United States by two individuals, a compilation of primary source documents by two individuals named Paul A. Samuelson and Herman E. Kroos. Krooss. It's from 1969. In the course of reading through this, I found something that was fascinating to me. On April 2nd of 1729, the governor, William Keith of Pennsylvania, and the House of Representatives had a discussion that involved formal writings. It had to do with issuance of paper money. April 2nd, the governor wrote a memorandum to the House of Representatives, and there was a response. He then, on May 6th, ended up having to respond to their response after they had sent him a formal acknowledgement through the speaker. The reason this is so fascinating is not just because of what they said, which demonstrates that the governor had a significant disagreement with the trajectory of the House of Representatives and foresaw that there might be something less than wise about the course they had taken. But while he initiated his initial response on April 2nd, 1729, as it was pending on April 3rd of 1729, Benjamin Franklin wrote a very extensive writing concerning, as he's entitled it, a modest inquiry into the nature and necessity of a paper currency. I've read through this. I think it's very important. It was one of the most important things I've thus far read. It gives a context to an understanding of money, specifically, what is money? So I'm going to start reading this, and I'm going to read it sections at a time until it is finished. There is no science, the study of which is more useful and commendable than the knowledge of the true interest of one's country. And perhaps there is no kind of learning more abstruse and intricate, more difficult to acquire in any degree of perfection than this, and therefore none more generally neglected. Hence it is that we every day find men in conversation contending warmly on some point in politics, which, although it may nearly concern them both, neither of them understand any more than they do each other. Thus much by the way of apology for this present inquiry into the nature and necessity of a paper currency. And if anything I shall say may be a means of fixing a subject that is now the chief concern of my countrymen in a clearer light, I shall have the satisfaction of thinking my time and pains well employed. To proceed then. There is a certain proportionate quantity of money requisite to carry on the trade of a country freely and currently, more than which would be of no advantage in trade, and less, if much less, exceedingly detrimental to it. Thus leads us to the following general considerations. First, a great want of money in any trading country occasions interest to be at a very high rate. And here it may be observed that it is impossible by any laws to restrain men from giving and receiving exorbitant interest where money is suitably scarce. For he that wants money will find ways to give 10% when he cannot have it for less, although the law forbids to take more than 6%. Now the interest of money being high is prejudicial to a country several ways. It makes land bear a low price, because few men will lay out their money in land when they can make a much greater profit by lending it out upon interest. And much less will men be inclined to venture their money at sea when they can, without risk or hazard, have a great and certain profit by keeping it at home. Thus trade is discouraged. And if in two neighboring countries the traders of one, by reason of a greater plenty of money, can borrow it to trade with at a lower rate than the traders of the other, they will infallibly have the advantage and get the greatest part of that trade into their own hands. For he that trades with money he hath borrowed at 8 or 10% cannot hold market with him that borrows his money at 6 or 4. On the contrary, a plentiful currency will occasion interest to be low, and this will be an inducement to many to lay out their money in lands rather than put it out to use, by which means land will begin to rise in value and bear a better price, and at the same time it will tend to enliven trade exceedingly, because people will find more profit in employing their money that way than in usury. And many that understand business very well, but have not a stock sufficient of their own, will be encouraged to borrow money, to trade with when they can have it at a moderate interest. Secondly, want of money in a country reduces the price of that part of its produce when it is used in trade, because trade being discouraged by it as above, there is a much less demand for that produce. And this is another reason why land in such a case will be low, especially where the staple commodity of the country is the immediate produce of the land, because that produce being low, fewer people find an advantage in husbandry or the improvement of land. On the contrary, a plentiful currency will occasion the trading produce to bear a good price, because trade being encouraged and advanced by it, there will be a much greater demand for that produce, which will be a great encouragement of husbandry and tillage, and consequently make land more valuable. For that many people would apply themselves to husbandry who probably might otherwise have sought out some more profitable employment. As we have already experienced how much the increase of our currency by what paper money has been made has encouraged our trade, particularly to instance only in one article, shipbuilding, it may not be amiss to observe under this head what a great advantage it must be to us as a trading country that has workmen and all the materials proper for that business within itself, to have shipbuilding as much as possible advanced. For every ship that is built here for the English merchants gains the province her clear value in gold and silver, which must otherwise have been sent home for returns in her stead. And likewise, every ship built in and belonging to the province not only saves the province her first cost, but all the freight, wages, and provisions she ever makes or requires as long as she lasts, provided care is taken to make this her pay port, and that she always takes provisions with her for the whole voyage, which may easily be done. And how considerable an article this is yearly in our favor, every one, the least acquainted with mercantile affairs, must needs be sensible. For if we could not build ourselves, we must either purchase so many vessels as we want from other countries, or else hire them to carry our produce to market, which would be more expensive than purchasing, and on many other accounts exceedingly to our loss. Now, as trade in general will decline where there is not a plentiful currency, so shipbuilding must certainly of consequence decline where trade is declining. Now, this begins on page 24 of volume 1. I've stopped 3 lines into page 26.